I got nothing. So that just happened. Turns out our beloved owner got caught committing a ring 4 and is now forcibly out of the team and replaced by a hopefully better leader. I admit that I used to admire Jukala. I mean, for someone who revived the game and continued it where its original dev couldn't, it just seemed like the right thing to do, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. There were already a few red flags that created mistrust, my only notable observation being the removal of the star system after Jukala abused it for her own amusement. Let's review all of Jukala's towers! Now my thoughts on Jukala as an owner is something I can't get into because I know absolutely nothing. That question is reserved for those close to her, and I'm but an observer whose only notable observation is that damn star system. However, what I'm able to offer is my thoughts on her as a builder. Jukala only has 7 solo builds as of now, and probably for the rest of time, with her final work being Tower of Oblivion in April 2023. If I were to describe Juke's style, it would be ideaful. Her style is something very few people can ever match, but it comes at a cost as her execution of said ideas are weak in most areas. You'll find most if not all of her towers to have some annoying section due to a lack of polish or difficulty balance, so I always recommend being prepared the difficulty above before you try any of her towers. For the sake of consistency, I'm going to review every tower in chronological order so we witness their earliest creation and see how much their work have improved over time. I'm only considering solo works and not group collaborations, so no Tower of Deep Darkness or Citadel of Heights and Depths, but I will be brief about them still. With that out of the way, I'm going to break my own stated rules and intentionally transfer 2 steeples to the front. These 3 towers in my opinion are Juke's weakest creations and doesn't reflect the best of what she's capable of. They are either too uninteresting, flawed, or completely broken. I'm hesitant to discuss them, but they each leave a piece of Jukala's style and tendencies, which are again her best attributes. Tower of Winning Every Run, more notable for its name, less known as Jukala's first tower, has a lot of safety nets, something Jukala uses frequently and for good reasons. As for the rest of the tower, you might as well ask a stranger what they think about Tower of Slight Inconvenience. Her next 2 works are a little weird, separately weird despite it being in the same realm, but undeniably experimental, another one of Jukala's tendencies. Given Steeple of Pursuit's ancient relic status, I think it would be fitting to get this one out first. It's crap. Not in the I'm old and I have dated Obby design, more so in the how did this make it in. Don't mistake this as me defending the Obby's design, I think it's one of the worst in the game and sits on the same level as Tower of Despair's Obby design. But that alone doesn't break this tower for me. It's its oh-so defining gimmick that for some reason apparently isn't insta-kill nor can collide foes, which transform a unique challenge into an ascending safety net, completely breaking the punishing aspect that defines every tower. I get that Jukala wanted to have an old tower in the sub-realm meant for old-style towers, but forcibly doing so in spite of what your curators say is a blunder beyond the whitelisting of Tower of Great Displeasure. Besides, you already have Steeple of Fading Memories, which is equally bad. This is apparently a take on dementia in the form of a tower, if it weren't obvious from the name, signs, and the slight variation of familiar locations. While I think this is a disgustingly oversimplified representation of dementia, it does tap into another one of Jukala's tendencies. Jukala loves the horror genre. This is very apparent in 3 of the towers she's worked on, that being Deep Darkness, Oblivion, and Heights and Depths. I'm not fit to judge her design and horror, since all 3 of these moments on blind playthroughs ended up with my mouse clicking the top right corner of the screen. What I do want to say is why. Why does Jukala feel the need to add horror segments in a game about precision platforming? At minimum, I can understand why Deep Darkness has one given the theme it explores. The rest I can only see as a free advertisement to Juke's favorite horror game turned padded out section, but this might just be my cowardice speaking louder. I don't handle horror well and would prefer them out of the main gameplay and placed in their own secret lore corner just like Laron's backroom. Thankfully, Jukala doesn't like the mascot horror genre, so I can live in peace knowing that Freddy Fazbear won't come out of the closet. With these 3 out of the way, I can finally start sugarcoating the entire video. Her next creation would be a large step up, and I would go as far as to consider this her magnum opus, as it impacted both the game and Juke herself. Possibly. Despite it being the very first Citadel, it still holds up well, at least in terms of the functionality side, gameplay-wise subjective. It also introduced a lot of Citadel staples like basement floors and droppers, and it's probably also the cause of the overexpansion of outside segments that don't count as your own floors. Not that I'm opposed to that idea, in fact it's the best idea that allows builders to extend their ideas without being barricaded by the confines of the tower frame. Quite a number of my favorite towers utilize this freedom to their best effects. Citadel laptop splitting isn't one of them. A majority of your outsides feel more like a hassle to get through in spite of their creativity, notably the usage of moving platforms which slowed down progress a lot. Speaking of creativity, this is one of Jukala's best attributes when it comes to making towers. Primarily the long ones. I don't mean it kindly when I say that I hate a lot of long towers. Not many people have the capacity to do so, and it usually ends up being too drawn out. 9 times out of 10 these towers would be much more enjoyable with way less. Jukala on the other hand manages to cramp in so many ideas that it ends up leaving most of them feeling unfinished. Juke's style occasionally jump shifts from idea to idea with at max only a floor worth of breathing room. This is best visualized with floor 5 and the second last floor, which includes multiple segments with relatively different ideas. I should also note that this era of EToH doesn't have the most versatile or experienced coding, so a lot of gimmicks are made using just the basics, which really isn't a lot, so the fact that Jukala is able to stretch this out for 40 minutes without it feeling dull is a feat to truly behold. Unfortunately, her pursuit for constant doses of creativity leaves out a fair few gameplay refinements, and usually it ends up making some segments really annoying to get through. Generally, these segments have difficulty spikes or are made in a way which makes it easy to fail or both. In rare cases, it could come from confusion, which in this case happened to me before at floor 9. I never noticed the intended pathway and figured that the skip was the only way forward. And yes, if you're wondering why I thought so, blame it on the structure wackiness of 2018 towers. Anyways, I can see this Citadel being very frustrating for a handful of people, as difficulty balance isn't one of Code's strong suit. Floor 1's difficulty is a complete far cry from floor 16 and 17's difficulty and punishment, and that isn't counting the few enclosed area with their own spikes in difficulty, which, although safe, can rack up minutes of progress if you come underprepared. A key tip for aspiring climbers out there: I heavily suggest using the practice place not just for soul crushings, but for any intense or remorseless towers with the long labels on them, as you're likely to have difficulty spiked safe rooms, which may waste a lot of time, especially when your skill level is equivalent to the given difficulty, double especially if the tower is named mean tasks. Lastly, there's a secret ending to Cole's, which includes 2 extra floors and a boss fight, but I frankly think they aren't worth your time in the slightest. To spoil it for you, it demands that you find and click 72 hidden buttons in order, with slight buffs added to the Citadel as you progress, and your prize is a trial of Obama's face. By chance, if the trial piqued your interest, then I recommend you use a guide, as doing this blind is a bullshit tedious task that rivals beating Tower of Great Displeasure 10 times in a row. Let's not wallow in splitting laptops for too long and take a nice breather with Jukala's next work. Tower of Annoyingly Simple Trials is a surprising and simple idea for this game. Simple in what this tower is trying to achieve, and surprising in how actual little thought was put into making a tutorial work for a game like this. I enjoy EToH as a tower alone. I think it's a much needed simple introductory to the game that provides player a little foresight in what's to come, whilst also not fully shying away from its core punishing element. There's a reason why it sits so well among the classics despite being a year late. But as a quote-unquote tutorial, it only teaches you the basics and leaves everything else for you to figure out on your own. It never teaches you how to properly do a wrap or ladder flick or any other complex techniques. It just tells you that you can do them if you know what this means. Realistically, I don't think that a tutorial can work for a game like this. At least not in this form. If this were to take the form of the practice obbies, maybe it would, but given the relative lack of practice obbies in the recent realms, I highly doubt it. As it stands, I still really like this tower from a beginner's perspective, but if it wants to fully commit as a tutorial, it needs to explore more complex territories, something I'm hoping Purgatorio would do. Keeping up with the trend of naming towers after mundane objects, Tower of Yearning success joins the crew and is one of Jukala's more complex experiments. Yearning's success is in many ways much like laptop speeding in that it has a lot of wacky progression. It unfortunately also has a lot of button searching segments, but it's not as sluggish as the one in Coles. What it does bring to the table is something way more unorthodox. This tower toys with nearly every element of tower design. Its ideas are wildly distinct, the gameplay is simpler than Coles but is also much more varied. Its progression is completely shattered and Garfield is there. It's very hard to describe this tower since it changes so frequently, almost like it was a collaborative effort. In other words, expect the unexpected, as this is a tower that wants you to be in awe of its wackiness. But all that glitter isn't gold, and this tower ends up suffering a lot from a lack of polish. You'll find a lot of faults in this tower, way more than Coles, which surprises me knowing that they're made almost a year apart. You'd expect the quality of gameplay to increase by now, but Zone 1 somehow stooped that low and houses some of the worst designed towers in the entire game. Toys isn't as horrible as those. Much of Jukala's design is in favor of enjoyment and thus lacks a lot of punishment and in tandem frustration. That isn't to say that it's free of frustrating moments. If you've played Toys, then you should be aware of the annoying sections, because there's like 10 of them. I'm just saying that Toys is one of the lesser frustrating towers in this zone. I still recommend checking this tower out. It isn't that bad, it's just very outdated in design. And thus we reach the end of Jukala's journey, ending off with her masterpiece and my favorite work of hers. This is a tower that had more than 4 years worth of time spent developing it, and it shows. It has that absolutely insane concentration of ideas much like Toys, and the polish and feel of a good modern tower. It's also a throwback to many of her previous works, sometimes quite literally. I have to be honest and say that I'm not even sure where to start. This tower has so many fantastic sections that deserve their own chapters, and I'm running out of things to generalize, so I'm going to take the long route again and discuss about every floor and go on from there. The first 3 floors have nothing much going for them. Oddly enough, almost all of Juke's work have unremarkable starts to them, such as Deep Darkness or Cohat, and this one's no different until we reach the end of floor 3, which is when the tower finally realizes its mechanical head. Starting off with one of the worst gameplay decisions Juke has ever made, a ball rolling section with alt kill bricks. Now in one of my previous videos I criticized the usage of kill bricks, suggesting alt kill bricks as an idea that more builders should tap into. I almost want to take it back after seeing this. I'm joking of course, but understandably it's a difficult idea to not make it annoying. Floor 4 is a take on Killjoy's Key Marathon floor, with the floor separated in half to have one half occupy a more traditional style platforming and the other a puzzling chamber. I should probably also mention the homeworld section, but I honestly think it's just a really boring section that's just there because Jukala wanted it. This may also be a part of the unfinished lore which, well, probably won't ever get finished, at least in Juke's vision. The next stretch of floors are my favorites and personally some of the best gameplay Juke has conjured, excluding the start of floor 5. It uses the falling limiter gimmick from Tower of Deep Darkness, a favorite of mine actually, and blends it with the alt kill bricks in a fantastic but admittedly pretty annoying floor 5. This floor plays a handful of dirty tricks which more so ends up making this floor a little trial and error-y in nature. The next 2 floors are the absolute best of Tower of Oblivion and has some of the best merging of ideas that I've seen in a tower. One of them comes after a decently fun windy section, the Wall of Weight, which is a partial no-jump section that has you descend the wall without triggering the fall limiter. What I enjoy the most from this segment is that the no-jump effect is contained in an area, and the jumps that demand you to peek outside said area to reach the next one. It's such a simple concept and yet I find it so intriguing. Probably just a side effect from disliking a majority of no-jump gameplay. Another great segment is the one at the start of floor 7, which is a descending twist on the idea found from the 8th floor of Coles. I can see this part being annoying for some, but as a proud lover of anything that rotates, I think you can understand why I love this part a lot. The last 2 floors didn't do much to impress me as much as the last 3, but it's got its share of ideas. For one, it decided to shift into a different kill brick idea, a mix between the alt kill bricks and the regular. You're now invincible, homeboy. And thankfully there's a mix of ouch breaks and insta-kills, so this floor doesn't get too heavily trivialized. There's also a maze that I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time trying to find the teleporter trigger. The last floor is probably the one everyone loves the most, myself included. It utilizes a lot of unique killbreak gimmicks like the no regen challenge or the fire/poison killbreaks. It also has a revisit to Steeple of Pursuit, a better version thankfully, and a quiz which is ludicrously trial and error even if you know the lore. I have no idea what Jukala was thinking when she made this part. This marks the end of Tower of Oblivion, but much to everyone's surprise, Jukala cooked way too hard. I don't want to spoil too much about this boss if you haven't played it before, and besides, I don't think I have to tell you how amazing the boss defeat is. It's a fantastic finale for such a lore-heavy tower. I adore the blend of regular boss fighting with some platforming breaks, something I wish more bosses in this game would utilize. Oh, and just like Cole's, it also has a secret ending which I actually do recommend going blind this time. It's not notoriously tedious like the one in Cole's, and its surprises are more worth going for despite the prize being a measly badge instead of a trial of Joe Biden's face. But maybe next time. So I'm sure some of you might be wondering by now, why am I talking about Jukala of all people? And why now at this very moment when her controversy still remains relatively fresh among many people? With full honesty, this is a video I've planned to make a while back. My intentions of this video were as a final thank you to Jukala as well as something else which I'll mention later. But then, why did I continue making it? Well, I have no other way to put it lightly. I really wasn't lying when I said that I admired her. That point now has been muddied, but it still left a glimmer of positives that I still cling to. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the dev commentary that can be found in Tower of Oblivion, which I had a fun afternoon reading. Not only do I get to know more about the development behind this tower, it also shares a bit of Juke's inspirations and struggles. It paints a picture of someone who's genuinely dedicated to their craft, someone who wants to push boundaries and puts in the effort to do so even if it takes years. I don't think EToH is a good canvas for a creator like this, but that's also the reason why it stood out so much. It's this part of her which I truly admire, which is a shame to know what comes next. What compels her to throw away such a fortune is something I can only speculate. Whatever that reason was, it's not like any answer now will change her ultimate fate. She was rightfully kicked out and replaced by the new duos in charge, and they have some giant shoes to fill in. I'm not super confident with them right now, but it's not like Jukala's first run was any better. Still, I'm quite positive about them and I'm sure they can bring forth a great era for EToH. I can't believe it. Eternals? Eternals is such a bad name, man. Why? A few more parting words before I leave. Originally, I wanted to include Tower of Deep Darkness and Tower of Killjoys after realizing that Jukala handled the majority of their development. But unfortunately, some complications happened during the process. My game would crash every time I joined the server. That has been fixed now, but I've already did so much before this realization, so I scrapped it. I also wanted to share the possibility of turning this video's idea into a series, rating more tower builders and their works. I'm not considering that this year as I'm taking a break away from EToH. I've been hooked far too much to this game and I desperately need some time off to play something else. That doesn't mean that I'll stop making videos for a year. I have some other plans for this year that won't be EToH videos nor its fan games, as I'm using this year to diversify the games I play. My videos are still primarily going to be about Oblivion. I don't think I'll ever see myself abandoning that. And thus ends the video. I can't actually think of a proper ending, so bye.